read the title, you knew exactly what you were pressing on when you read it. Hello, my name is Creed Nation, and this is episode 2 of How I Would Have Done It. And today's film that I'll be going over is Cats 2019. Now, in case there are any people who are watching this and from, say, Jody's Corner, and you're saying, hey, wait a minute, isn't this the same guy who kept on talking about how much he loved this movie and said the musical was the greatest thing ever made and, like, it is absolute perfection? Yes and no. Yes, I did say that I loved Cats 2019. Yes, I think I did say, and believe I said, that the musical was one of the best things I've ever seen. No, I've never once said that this was perfect. I mean, just go through all of the super chats that I left on Jody's Corner. I mean, you will know that I have never once said that the film was perfect or the musical. Okay? While I still love the movie as well as the musical, it's kind of hard for me to say that I can actually see anything wrong with the musical per se, because I mean there's so many versions of it, you know, and both here in the States as well as the UK and as well as in Asia, Australia. I mean, heck, even Canada has their own version. And so does Mexico. But it's kind of hard for me to say how great it is, because there's so many versions of stage musicals out there. But the movie, yeah, I can easily pick apart the problems of that film, or at least acknowledge that there are problems with the film. Like I mentioned plenty of times, the CGI didn't seem complete. And some parts, I mean, they could have at least done it better. I mean, they should have had as much common sense as the director of Sonic the Hedgehog should have had. After the first trailer dropped, he should have just said, you know what, this isn't working. Clearly people have problems with the special effects. We need to just delay the release of the film for at least a few months before releasing it, so we can actually improve on the CGI. I mean, that's what I would have done if the first trailer had complete dislikes, completely destroying it. I would have said, okay, hold up, I'm going to see if I can get this polished, or at least improve the CGI, make it more acceptable to the audience. I mean, that's what I would have done, at least. Or at least that's what the director of the Sonic the Hedgehog movie did. I mean, well, we've heard that story plenty of times before. I don't think I have to go about and repeat it from, like, start to finish. So, I mean, at least Sonic the Hedgehog was decent enough. Anyway, yeah, in case any of you wondering why I'm doing all that thing, I'm like doing this in like 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning, so I basically just got up like an hour and a half ago. So I'm gonna do my best. And like I said, some of the acting I actually had a problem with, especially when it came to actors or actresses like Rebel Wilson, Jason Derulo, and and James Corbin. And okay, for anyone out there who is wondering, no, I am not. I'm not saying that Jason Derulo is a terrible singer. Okay, I've actually heard some of his songs, and I mean, for what he does pretty well. Just not for the character that he was assigned to portray in the film. I mean, it just doesn't work. Oh, anyway. Well, you might be wondering, okay, so, okay, so how would you have done it? Oh, that's a very good question because, to be honest, there's actually very little that I would have actually changed. Well, I mean, the overall story would have to, the overall plot, you know, getting from point A to point B would actually remain the same because, I mean, seriously, that's what people would expect to see from a stage musical being made into a film adaptation. They want to see the stage musical in a film adaptation with the same plot from point A to point B. Maybe some changes, or maybe some additional stuff to, you know, flush out the characters at least. Because I mean, seriously, according to Wikipedia, Cats is basically just a sung through musical, which means there's literally singing from the beginning and singing all the way to the end. Literally, all of that is singing with probably a few lines of spoken dialogue in between certain parts, and that's it. There's no dialogue, you know, to flesh out the characters or get to know who these characters are, and maybe that's the whole point of the stage musical, at least. But in film, but when you're making a film adaptation, you just need to expand on it. Otherwise, I'm trying to think of a terrible movie to think about that does a certain thing, but I can't exactly think about it. But I mean, if you guys know of a film that actually does this whole thing, you know, does a whole plot line, and you like never get to know any of these characters, let me know in the comment section below. So, what changes would I make if I was the one doing this? Well, for one, I would actually change the setting. Not the location, and when I mean setting, I don't mean the location in which the whole thing takes place. In fact, the whole standard, I mean, the whole location thing, you know, moving the whole thing from just being in a junkyard to like expanding it to like have these other areas to explore. I mean, I would expect that from a film adaptation of Cats, but I'm not exactly talking about the place. I'm talking about the time. I know, I don't mean having it all set in the daytime. I mean, it's clearly, in all the dialogue, it clearly says that this is taking place at night. No, I'm talking about the time. What period of time it takes place. Now, in the film, it takes place in the 1930s, mainly because I think it was making a callback to the fact that most of these songs, which are actually poems that were written by the author Thomas Stearns T.S. Eliot, who is an American-born British poet and writer and critic. Fancy that. A critic critiquing a critic. Don't think about adding that to the history books, people. Or at least not when it comes to me. And I get it, I get it. That's why the whole thing was set in the 1930s. But given the music, the style of the music, ranging from like, say, old rock to modern rock to opera to jazz, and I mean, it just had a variety of like these different musical styles. Most of it doesn't sound like it would be something that you would hear back in the 1930s. I mean, most of this, I get it. Chicago is probably one of the few exceptions to this rule, but seriously, if I was to make a certain piece of, if I was to make a musical adaptation of a musical for film, and it was supposed to be set in this certain time period, I mean, I would want the music to reflect that time period, or at least stuff that would have actually been around up until that time period. And so, where would I have it set instead of the 1930s? Well, that's simple. It's probably going to sound like the most cliche thing you've ever heard, but I would have it set in the 1980s. And no, I'm not saying that just because I have a nostalgic love for the 1980s. No. Even though I never lived during that decade. Now, the reason I'm doing that is because actually 40 years ago this year, actually, it marks the is when Cats came out as a musical. It came out, it was first released to the public as a musical and shown to the public back in 1981. So I decide, hey, why don't I make it set in the decade in which the musical came out, the 1980s. And I mean, you get it all: 80s style soundtrack, 80s style setting, 80s style designs, I guess, if you want, 80s neon colors. I mean, just change the whole thing, give it a little color grading, and give it massive color grading, not just any color grading, massive one. It says 1980s. And 80s style music, actually. Get a little of that. I've seen Fantastic Mr. Fox a little too many times this year. Buy it. Anywho, what about characters? Well, for one, I'm not going to have the lineup that was used in the 2019 film, or maybe I should say Tom Hooper film, because he was the one who directed the film, and also there was an adaptation released back in '98, which was basically just a stage version of it being recorded so people can take it home, watch it however many times they wanted to. And the character line I would have would be a little more faithful to what the musical actually had. And I know that degrades the whole. And I know that plays a little that makes the role of my celebrity crush Francesca Hayward's character to be to really be downplayed. But look, Frankie, I'm sorry, but I mean, Tom Hooper had an idea for his what a Cats adaptation would be for him if it was placed on film. I'm just saying what it would be like if I was to do it, okay? So please don't hate me for this, Frankie. Well, given the fact that you never actually looked at my stuff and you don't actually. Yeah, I think I get the. Yeah, I think I get the reason why a lot of people say never meet your heroes. Weird. So, what kind of. So, when I mean original cast, original line of characters, what am I talking about? Well, for one, this would require Taylor Swift's character to not actually be in line with the villain, like in Tom Hooper's version. No, she would actually be. Her character would actually be more along the lines of what. More along the line, more part of the other cats. Most notably going after Jason Derulo's character. Big time. Now, and of course, downplaying Francesca Hayward's character, but also upgrading, putting a little more focus on a certain character, which I really believed was sidelined in this film, or at least as far as I was concerned, completely erased from the film adaptation. And I don't even give a I don't care what Wikipedia says if the character was actually in the film. I mean, that it was not the original character. She didn't act like the original character. She doesn't. She didn't. She doesn't even look like the original character from the musical. In fact, that's one problem I had with. In fact, that's another thing I had wrong with the film. The character designs. I couldn't have to, unless they were uniquely designed, like to actually say these are the characters, or at least had some semblance of what the stage adaptation had, stage version had, and I couldn't even tell who these characters were. I mean, aside from Francesca Hayward's character, because, I mean, her character is literally the only white cat in the entire musical. On both stage and film. And that also brings up another thing I would have done. I would have changed the character designs and actually made them actually look a little more like the actual musical versions, stage musicals versions, as opposed to what Tom Hooper did in his film. And I get it. They probably wanted to be a little more realistic, I mean, in line with the actual designs of cats and, like, real life. But, I mean, seriously, people are more familiar with the designs of the characters from the stage musical. They're not going to recognize these other characters that seem completely alien to them. And so that's what I would do. I would have designs to be a little more faithful to what the stage musical had. Maybe have some changes to signify a certain realism, certain uniqueness to the characters, but overall they would still pretty much look like what they did in the stage version. And let me go and let me drag back the character that I was talking about. She would all the parts she would have in the stage musical would still be the same, would still be hers. Design would be the same, where you know who this character was, and And most importantly, she would actually have she'll have her original name, not the version that Broadway changed it to, and then later Australia used for their adaptation. No, her name would not be the stupidest name. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about, let's go through a little history. I know that's probably not what you clicked on the video for, but hey, it's gonna happen one way or another. Okay, the certain character I'm talking about, her name is Jemima in the original musical. That's a Jemima. It was the name of the character in the original musical back in 1981 when it first hit the West End in London. When it came to Broadway in 1982, they got rid of the name mainly because they think it was associated with Aunt Jemima. And if you know exactly what happened with Aunt Jemima quite recently, yeah, kind of makes them look stupid now. Actually, they were stupid the first moment they even came up with the name. What they basically did was use another name that was used in Eliot's works. They used the name Syllabub, which is basically a combination of the word silly and the name Beelzebub. And if you read the Bible, you would know that Beelzebub is the prince of demons. Not a very good sign. Let's see. Okay, first of all, and when it comes to a Jason Derulo, wouldn't have him. I would actually probably replace him with, like, say, someone from the original musical adaptation, one of the original stage musicals, and have him portray the character he portrays in the film. The character's name is Rum Tum Tugger. Don't look at me, I'm not the one who came up with these names. It was T.S. Eliot, okay? He's the one who wrote this. He wrote that stuff like almost 60 years before I was even born. So don't blame me about these. Don't talk down to me about these names. And hey, while we're on the 80s style, how about we just have him wear like a leather jacket like this with the mane and everything? And yes, I merely got this jacket just for this video and just showing you what I think it would look like. Maybe a little coloring would probably be needed, but it would probably be what Tugger would actually be using in the musical. In fact, if you want an idea of what the soundtrack would probably sound like, I would actually recommend certain videos for you guys to check out, or just for you to check out. You know, I wouldn't recommend any reaction videos to these videos, mainly because of the because you might get struck for copyright if you actually did do reaction videos. So I wouldn't risk it. But you can go and find the music video of the Rum Tum Tugger. And no, I'm not joking. There literally is a music video of the Rum Tum Tugger on YouTube that you can find. It was made back in 1985. Had one of the original cast members of the Broadway version to actually sing it. His name is Terrence Mann, in case you're wondering. In fact, aside from the actor who portrayed Rum Tum Tugger in the '98 film, John Partridge, he's probably the second best. Well, at least to me, at least. Let's see. Okay, anything else? Nah, I guess that's it. So anyway, that's what I would have done that's the kind of changes I would have made if I had made Cats 2019. I know, I know it's not exactly as in-depth as, say, my, Terminator Dark Fate film, but hopefully, hopefully it explains a few things. Though I would like to note that in a certain live stream from Jody's Corner, live stream 83, I think it was, when I was discussing how I came to love Cats the musical due to watching the film adaptation. Let's just say, I kind of was tripping over my words a little bit. I mean, what I said was pretty much true. I'm not a lifelong fan of the musical, and up until that point, I only started loving the musical up until that point. Mainly because when the first trailer came out, I mean, I figured out that it was, I found out that it was a Andrew Lloyd Webber musical, but not one I was familiar with. Mainly because, I mean, I knew Andrew Lloyd Webber's work on, say, The Phantom of the Opera, but that was about it. He was just, to me, he was just the guy who made The Phantom of the Opera musical. The original with Michael Crawford. But I never heard of Cats until 2019, when the first trailer for the film adaptation dropped. Before then, I don't know, maybe I saw advertisements for it, maybe some commercials, or maybe people promoting the 98 film, but as far as I was concerned, before then, I did not even know what Cats was. I mean, good grief, I don't even think I would even know who T.S. Eliot was if I never knew about this. So yeah, just needing to clear up a few things, at least things that are well overdue, given that it was literally a year ago this month. So anyway, hope you learned a thing or two, and maybe, just maybe, we could have had a better adaptation than what we originally got for Cats. Tune in next time. Tune in next time. I'll be doing another nostalgic review. And episode 2 will be on a historical film this time that has had left an impact on me, say, politically speaking. Film is Amazing Grace from 2006. And trust me, you think the Miracle Maker was something? Trust me, you ain't seen nothing yet.